that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the second half of this novel and my thoughts on books 3 and 4 of Malazan Book of the Fallen, Novel 7, Reaper's Gale. I'm getting non-spoilers first. I think you've figured out my formula by this point if you've been watching, about my thoughts as the novel, I'm not a book, of the novel as a whole, now that I've completed it, before getting into spoilers. It's a rough one. Story-wise and pacing-wise. Now, I know pacing is subjective, and I've kind of been, religiously, as I've been going through this series, I found out about, 10 Very Big Books podcast, which I've been watching alongside me reading it. I've been watching Philip Chase, wonderful YouTuber. Go check him out. He also released a trilogy of novels, which was pretty cool. You should check it out. I haven't read them, but it's cool that he released some with how in depth he's gone with this. And A Critical Dragon. They've all taught me a bit more. I'm still learning. I'm not going to college or anything, but I've learned a bit more about narrative writing and just how stories go. And so I've tried to be a bit more nuanced and objective about my thoughts, but at the end of the day, everything is subjective. There's just different flavors to everything. What I'll say here, because when I've reviewed expanded universe books in Star Wars, I've been very objective, or I make it sound objective, like this is bad, but even that is subjective. But with Star Wars, it's somebody else's property. Right, like anybody who writes a story within Star Wars, they're beholden to the world created by somebody else, created by George Lucas, right? Because he's the creator. Also, if you want to give some credit to space opera lady Lee Brackett, as she wrote Emperor Strikes Back. But regardless of that, right, there's a certain expectation you have when going into a novel or a comic or a thing. When it comes to that, you can subvert that sometimes. You can change that up. You can, tell a little bit of a different story, but there still is a certain beat that is meant to be fixed by that, if that makes sense. In a shared, in a used universe, or in a universe where you're not the creator, you are just being allowed to enter the world and tell your own story. You know what I'm saying? So in that instance, I feel like there's ways to be like, no, that's just bad, because it's not adhering to the standard of the world that you are playing in. Right? With Malazan, or any other franchise where the author is the sole authority, right? It's different. The creators of this universe are Ian C. Elsamond and Steven Erikson. So what they say goes, right? And that's just how it is. So with Steven Erikson, I've learned that I should trust this man. And so no matter what, if I feel the pacing is off in any particular book, that is a me issue, because there's no way to measure that, because Steven Erikson is very explicit in everything. Explicit? He's very specific, very man, I'm struggling. He knows what he's doing. So if there are things in the book that I feel like could have been chopped out, he has in there for a reason. That's what he wanted. So there's no way for me to go well, he did that wrong. Because I feel like sometimes if you're reading a Star Wars book, there's just some errors made by accident. Oh, I thought I made this really cool scene. Actually, you just didn't. It's paced wrong. Doesn't feel very Star Wars-y. I don't know how to explain that. But with this, I expect from Erikson something, because I've read 6 books of this. So I have a certain expectation. And I understand that no matter what I feel about any particular section, it all matters. When I read Dead House Gates, I'm not a big fan of that military stuff. So the Coltane stuff really, really dragged for me. But I knew that that was just a me issue. And I didn't make that be an objective flaw. That was something I just recognized as a flaw with me, that I don't enjoy that. It's not even necessarily a flaw, it's just preferences. I didn't enjoy it, so for me, that made the book drag. 3, Memories of Ice, one of my favorites. You know, as much as I love Corbel Brooch and Botulin, I also didn't feel like that really mattered in the grand scheme. If you cut out all the sections with them, what changes? I mean, as far as this series is aware, unless they show up at the end, they haven't mattered since book 3. They're probably never coming back. If you want to see them in their adventures, you have to go to the spin-off books and novellas, right? But as for this, it's over. So I felt like that could have been taken out, and that would have made the story better, maybe. But they were comedy relief. So again, my whole point is I trust Erikson with everything in every story, no matter how insignificant or how unimportant it seems. I trust him that it's there for some reason. But Steven Erikson, you know, if I ever got the chance to talk to the guy, I would praise him to death. You know, it still doesn't mean he's infallible. You know, he's way smarter than Oliver B. He's a way better writer than Oliver B. But unlike every other book that I've read so far, even House of Chains, you know, I just feel like there were either certain things here that, and I understand, like, this is what he wanted, so, like, he did exactly what he wished, and a lot of people that vibe with that are absolutely for it, but there's just some things here where, I don't know, it just felt like it really didn't need that, you know, it could have been fine without, but it's there. And just some storylines that seemingly go nowhere. I'm sure it won't. I'm sure it will matter in the end. But it's, you know, for me, I don't have to worry about it. Right? Like, I've come into a time where all the books are published. So I can just go to the next one. But it is a lot to ask somebody, especially back in the day when this came out. Oh, trust me, it's all going to make sense in the end. But it makes that first experience kind of unsatisfactory. I understand, like, a lot of the appeal of these books is when you eventually do a reread, because then everything clicks, fits together, absolutely perfect perfection. You're like, yes! And you just get a whole new vibe. Maybe I'll feel just like that on the second time too, but there's just, for a first-time reader, there's some things here that just like, why would you do that? It just makes you feel so unsatisfied. But this is all me just talking about pacing, which is entirely subjective. Overall, the second half was really good. I will say there is so much bad. Not bad as in terms of the writing, but in terms of what's going on in the story. Not that the story is bad, it's fantastic. There's a lot of bad things happening. And it's sometimes overwhelming. You think you would get used to it, but it continues to happen. And I'm like, I just, what is the point? And perhaps part of the point is that there is no point. Things like this just happen. But this is fake, right? So why did these terrible things have to happen to everyone? What? You're the author. Why can't there just be happiness for some? And there kind of is at the end. Same time, I better see. Hold on. All I know is there better be happiness for whoever remains by book 10. There better be the utmost happiness. Or I don't care how well the prose and the writing and the storytelling is, I'll be pissed. There's enough darkness in the world. I need some light. This has to be somehow one of the darkest ones yet. Overall, when I first started, I thought it might be one of my favorites. It's continuing off my favorite book, Midnight Tides. I don't know if I'd say that anymore. Not because it's bad. I don't know. I'd have to ruminate on it. There's a lot of key moments that are amazing. As always in Malazan, there's always like those key moments. But is the entire journey there worth it? I don't know. But then at the same time, I feel like some things are kind of pointless and not necessary to be there. But would I have had such a strong reaction to some of these things if I didn't invest so much time into it. I'm not exactly sure. But Reaper's Gale, the second half, we have all this stuff going on with Tavor's army, the Bone Hunters, who are, Malazans, but they're not exactly part of the Malazan Empire right now. And they're trying to invade Lether, which isn't even theirs. Like, they finally show up. It's not theirs to conquer. They're not even really trying to conquer. It's a bit complicated, but they're on land that isn't theirs in the first place. Then you have the entire thing from Book 5, with Rulad still being insane because of the crippled god. You got Karsa Orlong that wants to go, beat him up, or seemingly that's the case. Then you have Fear, you have Saren Bedek, you have Udenis, Cattle, and they're going on their adventures still. Silchus Ruin, stuff happens there. A lot of things happen here. There's a lot of storylines going on. And it all culminates, of course, in a big crescendo. Yeah, I don't know. I think the part that got me the most, made me struggle, it was maybe 600 to 800. Around the 1,000 pages, stuff really started, But I'm doing a very bad job. But overall, do I think it's worth it? Yes, I still think it's worth reading. A lot of people, I've looked up reviews for it. Seems like a lot of people stop here. And I can kind of understand why. After book 6, where it's kind of convergence of everything, you finally expect everything to really, really, truly progress forward. This isn't truly that. I mean, it ties up loose ends from Midnight Tides, but main story-wise, I mean, I guess it does a little bit of stuff with Karsa and stuff, but it still doesn't feel like too much is progression being made toward an end. Like where are we even going to end up near an ending? I mean, we got 3 books left. And I have no idea how this is going to conclude. I mean, not that I should, I guess. But I feel like we should be wrapping up toward a conclusion. But I don't think we're anywhere near that. And from what I hear, 9 is a bunch of setup, which is why people find it to be their least favorite Malazan book. Because it's kind of slow. I don't know. I haven't read it. We'll see. But as long as the Cripple God is a masterpiece, I can forgive all their flaws. But not that I think there are too many. Here's the thing, though. What I'm trying to say, non-spoiler, my whole spiel, my whole rant that I've been getting on is, if somebody wasn't getting into it, they just still could not, or they just got fed up at this point, I would kind of understand. I mean, honestly, if I didn't have the goodwill of everyone on YouTube that's saying, no, it's so worth it, keep going, or some people online that I know, like Marcel, the Revanchist on YouTube, saying keep going, I don't know if I could. It's all them, plus my faith in Steven Erikson, because this man does deliver consistently. And reading his writing is always just superb. So I always keep coming back, no matter any grievances I may have. Anyway, the book as a whole is solid. It is worth your time. I do say, just bear with it. Bear with it. Continue with it. If you ever get confused, 10 Very Big Books podcast has existed for a couple years now. Worth a watch. Really helps you, especially if if you're ADHD like me. If you're super into it, then you're super engaged, and it's all you can focus on is the story. But there's going to be times where it's not totally grabbing you, and your mind's going to try to do anything else. So if you ever miss anything, 10 Very Big Books podcast is a good help to keeping that all in your brain. But I'm going to get into spoilers now. If you don't want any of those, time to go. But I do recommend it. It's Malazan. Steven Erikson never has written a bad book. Just some books are better than others in this series. And that's going to happen when you write 10 of them, and most of these are 1,000 pages long. And most of these are almost as long as the Bible, if not longer. So, I mean, it's going to happen. But that's pretty much it for now, guys. I'm getting spoilers. If you don't want that, get out of here. Even though I think this book came out in 2006, 2008 or something like that. Anyway, I was single digits when this book came out, I think. Anyway, moving on. Book 3, Knuckles of the Soul. So again, this is where we have the bone hunters finally showing up to Lether. We're now having kind of a convergence. You know, the first two books were kind of like Midnight Tides. Remember that book? Well, let's catch you up to speed of what's been going on, so that way we're all set for present day. You know, and then we get Karsa, we get the Bone Hunters, everybody is all converging, it's all a thing again. So, like, this book is a mix of being, you know, addendum piece to one, also convergence, you know. Because we got book 4 characters, we got book 3 characters, we got book 1, you know. Actually, we don't have, like, basically any book 1 characters in this book. So, but I think that's what book 8 is going to be. It's going to, like, let's return home to Genebacus, but we'll see, I guess, when I get there. But yeah, there's this, you know, all the Bone Hunters are coming to invade Lether. And Tavor, the most speaking she's probably ever done in any of these books as of yet. And she gives this amazing speech about bearing witness or being your own witness. You know, as a big theme of this book is the acts that you do in private. And it's the same thing. And I know that A Critical Dragon has talked about this, so I'm kind of stealing it. But, you know, it's a similar thing to the Bible. And this isn't to get, like, religious, but in the Bible, you know, there is in the New Testament a lot of the sentiments about giving to the poor and stuff, or praying. But don't just do that in public. Like, do that in private. You know, just give food to the poor one day, just because, and don't tell anybody about it. Don't brag about it, because it's the virtue. The temptation is to make it be about you. Oh, look at me! I'm a millionaire. I'm a big actor, whatever. And I'm giving millions to charity. But then it's not really about the charity anymore. It becomes, look at me, and how giving I am, and how great I am, and how loving I am. It becomes about you. You know, even if, you know, logically, who gives a crap what you know, you can be the biggest dick on the planet, but if you cure cancer, you still cured cancer, right? So, like, if someone's a dick, but they're giving money to the poor, I mean, like, that's still a good thing. But it's more about, it's asking more of a moral question of, like, what's more important, you know, like, if you help one person and no one ever knows that you did, but you do, and if you believe in God, then God knows. Isn't that all that matters? That you bore witness to the truth of the act? More so than the spectacle of it? So, you know, as they land on these shores to do what they got to do, she talks about bearing witness to these moments and what they got to do. And I can't do it justice. I didn't write it down word for word. But it was a greatly written speech by Stephen Erickson. And I'm glad that it's the most characterization so far that I've gotten for Tavor. And it was a great little thing she did. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. Bottle and Fiddler back. We love Bottle and Fiddler. They're a lot of fun. I will say, there's so many characters in all these books, so it's hard to care about each and every one of them, especially as each book goes on, particular characters get bigger focus. Fiddler, as a book too, was one of my favorites, because he was one of the only returning cast of characters, right? I don't remember when we saw him again, but he's progressively gotten, like, less and less. Like, he went from, like, one of my favorites to, like, I mean, I love him because of those other books, but in these books, he's just kind of there, and it's cool to still have a familiar face. But it's not the same sort of love and feeling as I've had in other books, you know. Now, they mentioned this at some point. I don't remember the context, but I wrote down this thing. I wrote them down because it matters for one of the novels written by Esselmont's title is A Sail. And these people talk about gods that they believe in, or that the Leozans, the Tisti Leozans, which are like white-skinned Tistiandi, believe in. I don't know, it's kind of, but we got A Sail for the Renthian, Rethlin, for the Justice God. They got two different names for the same god, but the Justice God, its two names are A Sail, and the Leozan name for them is Circonos. And I just wrote pacing. Again, it's entirely subjective, but even in, like, book 4, which I thought was kind of a bit of a jumbled mess, as it's this kind of transition piece, and I felt like it just wasn't balanced super well. But still, it felt like its pace is still pretty good for a book that's that long. But here, I don't know. It's the first time that I ever like really noticed that I'm reading like an 1,000-page book. You know what I'm saying? Like when I've read every other book by Stephen, like yeah, it's really long, but to me at least, it never felt like I was reading for an eternity. This kind of did, and I don't know if that's a me issue, if I'm just kind of getting fatigued because I'm doing these back to back to back, and people that would have read these originally wouldn't have done that. They would have, read them as they came out, which could have built hype and anticipation and on a reread, it'd be different. But as a first time through, I don't know if it's just me, like in a thing with that, or if it's a legitimate thing with a book. But it was something that I did mention. Throat Slitter talks about some prequel stuff, like some of the people that used to be part of the old Empire with Kelevend. And I know those names because they are trying to beat up Lacine in Return to the Crimson Guard. So I recognize those names, and I'm sure they're in the prequel books by S.M. Long. Rulog continues to get kind of more messed up and crazy. And he puts his parents in the dungeon for 2 months. Karsa gets a POV from his perspective, which I could be wrong, but I think this is one of the few times in a long time that we've gotten like a POV from him. I feel like a lot of it's been like Samar Dev talking to Karsa, but it's from Samar Dev's perspective a little bit. But this, I don't know, it was just something I thought worth mentioning. There's this big moment where we think there's going to be a big confrontation before. I'm so sorry. That there's going to be a big confrontation between Karsa and Ikram. But Ikram was like, nah, man, I promise Rulad to you, I won't interfere. Also, what we learn here is that Ikram, of course we've known for the longest time, he's half Jagat. But he's also half Toblakai. So. Tino. Remember Tino? Rapist from the beginning of this book? I don't deserve this. He is right. Somebody, I forget the guy's name, the freaking Invigilator, gets some falsy beliefs. He's super paranoid, and he starts beating up Tino. And he's like, I don't deserve this. I didn't do anything wrong. It's like, you know who else doesn't deserve anything? Like Janice. She didn't do anything wrong, and yet you're raping and torturing the poor girl. So, a little bit of dramatic irony there, buddy. Not that you learn your lesson and become a better person for it. You just continue in your ways. Sleem, this character, and Bug have this conversation about economics. And, Bug gets pretty passionate. And it was a really good scene. But then on the flip side of that, we get T-Hole and Janice discussion. And it has to be one of the best moments for T-Hole ever. I loved it. It probably also helps that I'm actually insane. I don't know if I've ever said this in Malazan, because I know I do this for Star Wars, and I can't do it for every character because there's so many. But for the ones that I really, really resonate with, I try to do voices. One, it helps me retain the information better. Two, I want to act, whether it be voice acting or actual acting. I want to do that, so it's practice. And three, I'm insane, as I said. So I'll read this stuff out loud sometimes, and I'll do different voices. T-Hole's just my voice. This is all to say that I feel like I gave one of my best performances ever to an audience of one, myself, when I was having T-Hole respond to Janice's arguments and stuff. And I really love this section. I will say, another thing I've noticed, which is a legitimate thing, it's not a negative thing. Steven Erikson's books feel a lot like back in the olden days of early science fiction or space opera or weird tales or early fantasy, where it feels very highbrow. And this isn't to say that you're stupid, like if you don't get it. I'm just saying, like, it feels like a scholarly individual writing for other scholarly individuals. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one in this universe speaks normal. Everybody speaks like they're super sophisticated, which, I mean, I guess is fantasy, so I can accept it. but it's just something I've really noticed. Like, it's either somebody's like extremely cartoonishly stupid, because Stephen writes them that way, or everybody just is pretty intelligent, and they speak very intelligent. Like, I'm trying to. It's not, this isn't a diss, just something I'm mentioning now. It kind of just came to my head. But for example, if you are familiar with the TV show on Hulu called The Bear, I think it's one of the best written shows in my entire lifetime that I've lived so far, at least. But part of that is the dialogue's not that sophisticated. A lot of it is stuff you would hear on your day to day, like walking into like a Starbucks or something, like something you would hear come from somebody you know or are acquainted with. It feels real. It feels like something people would utter. Nothing in Malazan really feels like that, which is fine. But that's all I'm saying. Is that it doesn't... It feels like somebody wrote those lines in. I don't know if that makes sense, but my point with all that, I did have a point, is that this part definitely... I loved it. I loved the passion. I loved the arguments. You know, it was the first time we really get to see T-Hole like plead for what he believes and stuff. But it is very much feeling like... I know that Steven Erikson does an amazing job of kind of like putting out ideas without like specifically telling you what you should believe. But a little bit of this did feel... I mean, I'm totally for it. I'm in agreement with pretty much everything he said. But it does feel a little bit like, all right, through these characters... my opinion to you, which is fine. It just, this is the most apparent. I feel like it's somehow more apparent than it was in Midnight Tides, but I loved it, so I'm not dissing it. I'm just saying I noticed it a little bit more this time around, but it was great. I loved it. And then we move on to book 4, which is the title of the novel, of course, Reaper's Gale. Menador is a dragon, but a lot of people can be turned into dragons in this universe, so what do I even care? And I just have to mention again, especially because of this book, Troll's compassion and empathy for other beings and other people is the greatest in this entire series. He is... I wish I was as empathetic and caring as Troll is. And you know what? When I read Midnight Tides, Troll wasn't even my favorite. It was Theo and Bug and Rulod in that entire struggle. It was and Saren. Troll was just kind of, you know, like I liked him. I never didn't like him. But then you realize, you read all of book 4, and I loved his dynamic with Onrak onto here, and then he's in a little bit of 6. And then for everything that goes down in this book. And my heart. And nothing in this series has got me to like tears yet. Because I'm a heartless bastard. Okay? But you know, there's been 2 times in my life where something has got me so deep that I just didn't want to read or watch for a while. One was Dexter Season 4, Episode 12. If you know, you know. And then Malazan Reaper's Gale. With what we'll talk about in a little bit. I can't even do it right now. I gotta wait. Again, and then we go back to the Owl. Ewal. Remember them? Did you think they had any chance of winning? I didn't, considering there were just a bunch of tribal people going up against the Lethar. But guess what? Red Mask. You know, we spent like this entire book learning about him. Like setting up something because we're getting introduced to a new character this far in. Well, it didn't matter because he's dead. Will something come up later? I'm sure. They resurrect people. They bring people back as ghosts. They do all these things. Maybe he'll become a god. I don't know. He'll come back in some way, shape, or form. He'll make it work. He'll make it matter. But as of right now, what was the goddamn point of reading all these chapters with him if he's just going to die? And on top of that, I don't know how many of you watch horror films. But if anybody's seen Terrifier 2, there's that one scene, and if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He's done stuff to this girl, and to add salt to the wound, literally, he gets some salt and starts pouring it on. That's what Steven was doing to my body, flailing it alive and putting salt on it after the fact. Because after Red Mask, after being confused and a little bit upset that they spent all this time reading about a character that's just going to die anyway, this late into the franchise, we then have Talk. Remember Talk? Well, he's dead. Again. Out of any character that this could have been done to, we do it to Talk? I'm sorry, I know they're not real, but like, has that character not suffered enough? I mean, this man was tortured for like half of Memories of Ice. And like that. And again, I'm sure so many crazy things happen in the series, he could come back as a god or a ghost or something and still be in the story. But why make him suffer this much for seemingly no resolution or point? I get that, like, real life is like that, but this isn't real life, man. You can write whatever you want. So it hurts me, but that didn't get me as much. We'll get to it. But I was really upset. Just felt unfair. Out of all of the characters that we could have butchered and killed, we do it to the one that's already suffered probably the most out of any of these characters. Again. These ancient sisters in the beginning book, they get ready to attack. And then all hell breaks loose. Fear is reunited with Troll. But then Clip starts attacking because Silch's Ruin had his own plans. And then Troll kills Clip. Silchus stabs Kettle, making a new, like, Azath house or something. It was a little lost there. And Fear dies. Troll's injured. What, we have Eudinis, Troll on wreck, Saren left. Then we get to this part. This is just like really hard to read. Janeth escapes this rapist, only to be brought right back and to be raped again several more times. Now, we do get one of the most satisfying deaths in all of fiction history, bringing in a way more serious Leia Organa with Jabba the Hutt, or, I don't know, take your pick, I don't know, Tyrion with his whore. Don't call her that. Tywin Lannister on the toilet. I don't know, but we got Janeth choking Tenal out with the chains till he chokes out and dies, and it's never been more satisfying. I don't even hate the crippled god as much as I hate Tenal. Yavanther. I'm so glad he's dead. I've never been more happy in my entire life for anything than this fictional character's demise, which he so rightly deserved. Compassion for many, but not for him. Anyway, so we have that amazing moment. I wish she didn't have to suffer so much to get to it, but here we are. Karsa, finally. We've been waiting since Bone Hunters for this confrontation, which they teased back then. Rulad versus Karsa. But Karsa refuses to fight. He just stays on the defensive. Beers, because, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Featherwitch was doing some stuff, but Beers, the brother of Teal's back, and he saves Teal. Samar cuts herself with the knife that Karsa gave her. Makes a portal or whatever happen. Because at some point, while Rulad's fighting Karsa, Rulad stabs Karsa in the leg. And then Karsa, like, butts his head, stabs him a couple times, and then Karsa disappears with the sword still in his foot. Which means he goes along with the sword. Also, Troll and Saren have a moment, a very tender time, as they do the fun times, because they were in love, I guess. I don't know. It didn't really hit me that hard, but Troll gets one happy moment in his entire life, as he gets to do it with Saren, and I'm pretty sure she's carrying his baby by the end of the book. So that's something. Which is a human and a Tisty Andy. So I guess that they're Tisty Eaters. So I guess that is possible for interspecies breeding. I mean, I guess that already was a thing with like all these other characters. There's, yeah, Barghast is like looks human, so never mind. But there you go. Also, because Karsa killed the Emperor, and this time he's like actually dead, possibly. And oh yeah, Troll finds his bot. Oh, we'll get to that. But yeah, T-Hole is now the Emperor of Lether. T-Hole and Bug are now in charge of Lether. And guess what? Janeth, I mean, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm just going to mention right now, Janeth, is now the Empress. Ergo, she married T-Hole, which I'm happy for them. I'm glad that she gets some sort of a happy ending. I'm glad that T-Hole can make her happy. I'm happy for the two of them. That's great. Has some sort of happiness in this despair as we get to this next point. Sorry. Troll holds his dead brother in his lap. Mourning him for the second time, he came back to, maybe foolishly, but still, try to speak reason to his brother one last time and beg his forgiveness as he went to forgive his brother, only to find his brother already dead. So, he may be able to forgive his brother, but he will never know if his brother would have forgiven him. And then, as he's holding his dead brother, he gets stabbed from behind, through the back, to the heart, dead. Goodbye, Troll. I just had to ask myself, why? I mean, I guess for this reaction, but I was upset. Still am upset. Haven't gotten over it. But that hurt me more than any deaths in these books so far. Don't know why. Don't know what it is about Troll. I don't know. I don't know if it's his compassion, his empathy, his kindness throughout these books. But since he got introduced in House of Chains, he just slowly creeped into my heart. Even though he's not real. But I feel like a piece of me has been broken by the loss of this fake man. Anyway. Karsa is on the beach for midnight tides, where the crippled god resides. Rulaud's spirit wakes up with the crippled god, begging him to pick up the sword again, so he can come back to life in the mortal realm. And you think maybe Rulaud will be able to resist, because Karsa's telling him, no, don't. And he looks like a young boy again, not like the monster he turned into. But then the crippled god tempts him with being able to see his brother one last time, so they can forgive each other, love each other. So Rulaud lunges after Karsa. Karsa easily dispatches him. But then the crippled god says, yes. Just like the Emperor from episode 6 of Star Wars. You were always meant to have the sword, Karsa, not Rulaud. It was always for this moment for you to take up your responsibility, to take up what you've been destined for, carry that sword, become the Emperor of the Teblor. And Karsa, as he so often does, says no. I want no part of it. And hobbles away. Cripple God screaming in rage and sadness and misery, screaming that Karsa would not do what he required of him. So that was pretty great. This is now the second time that Karsa has said F you to the Cripple God's wishes. But yeah, the Malazans, or at least the Bone Hunters, are kind of, I guess, unofficial allies to the Lether people now, and T-Hole's now the Emperor with, you know, with Jenith as the Empress, and I don't know what Ikram's up to. Karsa's going to continue to do his thing, and Troll's gone, but Saren holds his baby. What will happen moving forward? I don't know. Up next is Toll the Hounds. We'll see how that goes. I have no idea what to expect. I know that it's back on Genebacchus, and I know I get to see Krupi again. That's as far as I'm aware, which a lot... I haven't seen Krupi... He has a slight cameo in Bone Hunters, but other than that, the last time he had a significant role was Memories of Ice. So it'll be good to see him again. But as to what to expect, I have no idea. I never know with Steven Eriksen's works. I guess we'll see when we get there. Until then, I need a break. Not just because I read 1,265 pages, but because it has emotionally strained me and hurt me, like as if it's my actual family member. So I'm going to go and read Crockpot Trail, Corblow and Botulin by Steven Eriksen, and Fiends of Nightmaria before returning with Toll the Hounds. Actually, before Toll the Hounds, then I also have Stonewielder by Esselmont. And then I'll return with Toll the Hounds because my heart needs some time to breathe. But then we'll be swinging with Toll the Hounds, Orb Scepter Throne, and then we're finishing off, baby, with the last two. Dust of Dreams and The Crippled God. Hope you all join me for that. If you like Malazan content, I got, the rest of that to go through. And then I still got God's Not Willing by Steven Eriksen. Got the 2 prequel books that he wrote. And the books by Esselmont about Calvin and Dancer. So still plenty of Malazan content to be found here, and I hope you stick with me. I know these videos aren't as long as they possibly could be for this kind of discussion. There's a lot of stuff I'm missing out. Again, if you want a more in-depth overview, 10 Very Big Books podcast is a great one. And I'm sure I'll talk about this with Brennan several months down the line on the Quillen Voss channel for a little bit more depth insights. But these are some of the highlights for me, some of the things I wanted to discuss. And thank you all so much for watching. And thank you, Steven Eriksen, for this book. No matter what I complained about or kind of, meandered through in this ramble, I did really enjoy it. And even though you've hurt my soul, it's still one of the greatest escapes from reality, though inevitably also bringing me back, that I've ever read. And it is a testament to your skill as a writer. I hope you finish those as sequels. I want to read them. And I hope you are remembered in the long future as being one of the best writers of this modern age. He's never going to watch this video, but say it anyway. Alright, guys. Till next time, if you're a drinker, next time take a drink, give a salute to Troll Sengar. And if you're not a drinker, I don't know. Keep him in your thoughts. Are a good boy. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.